What if the thing that you think is ruining your performance is actually what's needed to make it better? It sounds backwards, I know, but I'm talking about stress. We've been taught to fear it, we've been taught to avoid it and overcome it in every possible way. But the thing is, some stress is actually necessary for achieving peak performance. Now hold up, I'm not talking about the underlying chronic stress. I'm not talking about the toxic people in your life. I'm not talking about those toxic environments. I'm not talking about the things that ultimately ruin your health in the long term. If you're living in that, then you need to get out before the mountain of stress just gets to be way too big. But I'm talking about task-related stress. It's that feeling you get when you're about to do something big and meaningful and challenging to you that gives you the slight jitters. This is tactical stress. And it's the fuel for your best performance. So in today's video, let's discuss how you can use tactical stress to your advantage when doing whatever it is you gotta do, and how you can achieve peak performance by tapping into it instead of avoiding it. Let me take you back to 1908. There were these two psychologists named Robert Yerkes and John Dodson. And in their research, they found that performance increases when there's some sort of mental or physical arousal. And by arousal, I mean stress. But the thing is, performance only increased if the stress levels were up to a certain point. Because if people were experiencing a certain task that was too easy, then they would become bored. And if people were experiencing overwhelm because the task was way too difficult for them, then they would get anxious. What Yerkes and Dodson found was that the level had to be right in the middle. So they weren't too anxious, but they weren't too bored at the same time. If that stress level was right in the middle, then people would perform at their best. In these moments, the stress levels are just right. You're alert, you're mentally sharp, you're on edge, but not so much on edge. This leads to focused attention, which creates deep engagement with the task, which leads to your peak performance. And a few decades later, psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi took this research to another level, and he found that all of the things that they mentioned to be true. He found that having too little stress with whatever the task is leads to boredom, and having too much stress leads to anxiety. And to enter flow states, which we discussed in the last video, that level needed to be right in the middle. So in these situations, the problem isn't stress. The problem is finding that right amount of stress that actually benefits you. And this all starts with changing how you perceive the task that you have to do. Our brains have this built-in negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, our brain grew and developed to detect threats because it wanted to protect us. It wanted to keep us alive despite whatever was happening in the environment around us. Our brains evolved to spot danger so we could avoid that danger or combat against that danger. Now in modern times, we're not faced with as much danger as what our ancestors faced in the past. And that's where this negativity bias comes in. Because of course, the world is very different from what it once was, but our brains, they're basically the same because evolution takes a very long time to take place. And in modern times, this negativity bias is actually working against us. And this is why in modern times, when many of us are faced with situations that are difficult, like a deadline or a hard conversation or some very challenging task that's associated with our work, we associate that with threat. We consider it to be something that has the potential for loss. You see that stressor and you think, this is dangerous. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I have the resources to overcome whatever that stressor is. And when you perceive things in that manner, it makes it very difficult to perform at your best. Because once you label something as being threatening, then your body reacts accordingly. You get anxious, you have a cortisol spike, you're not thinking clearly. And in these moments, it makes rational decision making and taking legitimate, meaningful action towards whatever that goal is very difficult. But here's what changes everything. It's the mindset shift called challenge appraisal. This is when instead of seeing a stressor as a threat, you see it as a challenge. Something to overcome, something to work towards and conquer. You view this as a test of your capabilities or an opportunity to grow as a person. So you're in the same situation, you have the same physiological response, but cognitively you're perceiving it very differently. Because when you perceive something as being a challenge instead of a threat, then your body's reactions can be channeled. It can be used effectively in ways that actually serve you. You now feel activated, you feel energized, you feel primed to take on whatever that task is. This is the power of reframing a situation and using stress to your advantage. There was this research done at Harvard by Dr. Alison Wood Brooks. And there were multiple groups. There was a group where people would tell themselves, I am calm. And there was a group where people told themselves, I am excited before doing a big task. And the people who told themselves, I'm excited before doing that big task actually performed way better. This works because at the physiological level, anxiety and excitement are essentially the same thing. You get a beating heart, you get more cortisol, your body can get a little tense at times. You might even get sweaty palms or some butterflies in your stomach. But the main thing that differentiates anxiety from excitement is how you perceive it. So when faced with task-related stress, don't try to calm yourself down. Don't try to be chill. Reframe it. Get pumped up. Get excited. View whatever it is you gotta do as a challenge to overcome. It really is as simple as just shifting your mindset around how you perceive that stress. But knowing this intellectually just isn't enough. You need a protocol, and that's what I'm gonna give you here. So if you do this, then you'll stop running from stress when facing certain situations. You'll start using it as fuel. You'll begin to alchemize it in ways that actually benefit you. So the first step is identifying the high leverage task related to whatever it is you're experiencing. So let's say you have a deadline at work, and there's about 15 different things you can do in order to complete the task to hit that deadline. Instead of focusing on the simple, low leverage work that will only make a slight difference, attack the highest leverage thing. Set aside 60 to 90 minutes and focus fully intently on whatever that is. Don't stress yourself out and don't worry yourself about how difficult it is or how challenging it is. View this as a mountain to climb. View this as something like, okay, I am tackling the highest leverage and perhaps the most difficult task right from the get-go. And in doing so, this will create momentum, which will easily trickle into all the other areas of tasks related to whatever this work is. The main thing here is being intentional. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot like, oh yeah, be intentional, man, it's so good for you. But no, it's true. And in doing so, you're not randomly exposing yourself to stress. You're being very deliberate with the kind of stress you're enduring. And in these situations, you can perceive it as a challenge that will help you grow. After you've identified whatever this high leverage task is related to the challenge you're facing, next thing you want to do, step number 2, is list out the benefits. So before you start a task, list out 3 big benefits you'll experience by fully immersing yourself in that task. They should be very specific and they should be outcome oriented. The reason this is so important is because when you can do this, when you can identify the benefits in whatever challenging situation you find yourself in, you're reshaping the way your reticular activating system works. The reticular activating system, or the RAS, is the part of the brain that essentially perceives what you determine to be important within reality. So if you can prime that part of your brain to see the benefits and see all the amazing things you'll experience by embarking on this challenge, then you'll see future challenges as exciting. You'll get eager to do them, and pursuing whatever it is and overcoming whatever that task is will feel fun. You're challenging your brain to see the opportunity, not the threat. That's powerful. The third step is to shorten the working window. You want to give yourself a reasonable but compressed time to complete whatever this task is. You don't want to make it so short that it feels impossible and creates more stress, because that'll, as I mentioned before, ultimately ruin your performance. But you want to make it short enough so that it creates urgency and there's a slight little bit of stress involved, but not so much. Parkinson's law is the idea that work expands to fill the time you give it. So if you give yourself less time to complete whatever the work is, then you're using that to your advantage. You're creating tactical stress intentionally in ways that actually serve you. This compressed time frame does 2 main things. The first thing is that it gets you started. No more overthinking, no more procrastination, no more planning. You just go. And secondly, it keeps you moving, because when the time window is short, when you've compressed it, then you only have so much time to work with. And if you're always stopping to overthink whatever it is you're doing, then you're missing out on time. You're losing momentum, and you need momentum on your side. Task-related stress is not the enemy. It's not something to avoid or try to push aside. This is something you want to alchemize in ways that actually benefit you. Because when you can do that, you stop seeing these stressors as life-threatening. You start seeing them as challenging, things to conquer, things to overcome, and that's exciting. Obviously, you don't want to create so much stress that you have a panic attack. That's not good. But you also don't want to sit back and just let things happen. Utilize tactical stress to your advantage and watch how quickly your life can change. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like the video, subscribe for more just like this. And if you know somebody who's an overthinker or somebody who procrastinates and somebody who has all these big grand plans but can never seem to get things done, then share this video with them. Maybe this will be exactly what they need to use stress to their advantage and see whatever stresses they're facing as a challenge and not a threat. Anyways, once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.